If you have seen the 2017 version of the Justice League movie, then you already know what the plot is. However, if you haven't seen it, then I suggest you stop the video here. So, the forces of Apocalypse have invaded Earth, so it's up to Batman to unite the Justice League in order to stop Steppenwolf and the Parademons from destroying the Earth. It's the same plot of the movie, minus there are a few changes they added to this movie. And considering that it's a 4-hour movie, then you can bet that it's a lot here. For instance, we get to see more of the flashback battle in which the Amazons, the Atlanteans, the humans, and the Green Lantern Corps attack the forces of Apocalypse. However, this time we see, instead of Steppenwolf, we see Darkseid getting his hands dirty in order to conquer Earth. We also got more scenes of Cyborg, played by Ray Fisher, in which we explore his humanity, how he became Cyborg, and how he operates. Not to mention that we also get to see his connection with the Mother Boxes, and how he is the key to stop Steppenwolf and his forces. Speaking of Mother Boxes, we also get to see how they function. The Mother Boxes function as if they combine together, they create the Unity, and which it will cause an explosion in which it will reform the Earth to the image of Apocalypse. That is actually neat to see, and instead of just being an ambiguous MacGuffin that will be used to conquer the Earth, we see that it has a more function and it has more of a stake here. In fact, the stakes in this movie are much higher than the other one. We also get to see more scenes of the Flash running fast as well as using the Speed Force. We also get to see more of Aquaman and the Wall of Atlantis. We also get to see his connection with Bulko. We also get more Amazons attacking the forces of Apocalypse. We see more of Superman without the mustache or even the CGI lip that he had. We get small scenes of Wonder Woman and Batman having a romance, but nothing that big. We also get more nightmare visions. We also get to meet more heroes. And of course, we get to see Darkseid in movie form. However, I'm going to leave my thoughts on Darkseid later on. We also saw that all the scenes were rearranged or may extend in order for the movie to be 4 hours, in which for Zack is probably a good thing since he wants to expand in more character development as well as story. So now that we are in the casting characters, let's talk about Cyborg since he's the focus on the entire movie. Like I said before, while I am not a fan of Ray Fisher, I actually enjoy his character of Cyborg a lot more than in the 2017 version. We see more humanity on him, we see more of a backstory for him, we see how his powers work, how the technology around him can be used. We see that he's becoming like a god of technology, for lack of better speak. And we see his turmoil, his turbulations, his relationship with his father, how he troubles it, how he cannot live like a monster. And like I said, his character works in this movie. He actually feels more human and more believable. This is something that I actually don't mind to see in a Cyborg solo film, but given that Ray Fisher is in tribulations with Warner Brothers, I kinda doubt that. Another character that I actually enjoy in this movie and that I consider my favorite character is the Flash. I will admit that Ursula Miller's comedy in this movie doesn't always feel natural, but in this case, he actually has more scenes dedicated into how he uses his Speed Force to run fast. He actually has a Quicksilver moment in which he saves Iron West from being killed. We see more of the Speed Force, how it surrounds him, how all the electricity is just popping out of his body. And he actually gets to have one of the coolest scenes in the entire movie at the end of the climax. So for that point, I actually enjoy his character here more than the 2017 version. It's also good to see Ben Affleck as Batman again, even though he's not playing Batman anymore in the future. It's still good to see him, and it's good to see that he's trying to put himself back together after trying to kill Superman and watching him die. We can actually see that he has more of a stake here and that he actually wants to unite the League in order to protect the Earth from the upcoming apocalypse. Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman is actually another character that I enjoy watching, and Given that she's the MVP of the DCEU, I'm not surprised that she got the best scenes of action and drama. We can actually see Diana investigating more about Darkseid, the Apocalypse, and the three Mother Boxes. We see that she's trying to be more confident, and the fact that she's also abandoning her sisters in order to pursue this common goal of protecting the Earth is compelling storytelling. Jason Momoa's Aquaman is another character that, while I enjoy, I still not consider him the definitive Aquaman. And that's because he acts much of a dude bro. You mean like a guy who's confident but badass with that whole beard and long hair and looking all menacing, and I don't know. When I look at Jason Momoa, I see more of Lobo than I see Aquaman. But that's not a criticism, it's just the way I see him. Last but not least, we get to see Superman once again, played by Henry Cavill. I'm honestly among the people who don't think that Henry Cavill is a good Superman, and that's because I always see him more of a villain than he is a hero. But in this case, his character in this movie, while not much of a character progression, other than he got resurrected and he's with Lois now, he's still kick-ass and he's still looking powerful and strong. It is also cool to see that Superman is wearing his black suit, in which they were teasing it over and over, but it's good to see him in live action. And it's good to see that Superman gets to come back, do his thing, and punch the bad guys in the face. Although I'm not gonna lie, I'm actually going to miss his previous version in the 2017, because he actually seems like Superman in that movie, saving people's lives, having interviews with kids. Of course, he doesn't have the mustache or the CGI face that he had on the 2017 version, but I know it's gonna sound crazy, but in that 2017 version, he felt more like Superman than in the Zack Snyder version. Even though he has nice moments with his mother and Lois Lane, he feels more like an afterthought to me. And I'm still not fond with his relationship with Lois Lane, who's played by Amy Adams in this movie. It's just that, I don't know, I don't feel like Lois Lane feels more of a character but more of a plot, in which that was the plot of Batman v Superman, that Lois Lane is the key for everything, and that feels wrong for me. I mean, I know that Lois Lane feels more of a character in the other stories than in this one, because she had a passion, she had a personality, she knew what she wanted to do, she was a journalist who was not afraid of danger. But in this movie, Lois Lane, if anything, she feels more insecure, more shy, more depressed. And the Lois that I know, when Superman died, she's still running to danger. She will not stop for anything. And in this movie, I don't know, she feels more of a plot than an actual character. I'm sorry, Amy Adams, but that's the way I see Lois Lane in this movie. Some people will disagree, not all of them will see my thoughts or agree with my opinions, but that's just my opinion. And I feel that Lois Lane is more. We get to see more of side characters like Lex Luthor, played by Jesse Eisenberg. We see more of Slade Wilson, aka Deathstroke, played by Joe Manganiello. William Dafoe as Bulko. J.K. Simmons as Commissioner Gordon. In fact, those three actors were in Spider-Man, isn't it? Connie Nielsen as Wonder Woman's mother, having more kick-ass scenes. We see Jared Leto's Joker interact with Batman in this movie. And while I'm still not fond of the Zack Snyder version of Jared Leto's Joker, I still think he got the better stick on that movie than in Suicide Squad, which I absolutely hate. But I'll get into that later. We get to see more of Sylvester Stone in this movie, and who is played by Joe Morton, ironically who played another character in Terminator 2, in which he created cyborgs. Anna Beverly, of course. But in this movie, his character also feels more real, and his interactions with Cyborg in this movie feel legit and more heartbreaking. After all, this man was a busy workaholic that saw his son dying and his wife already dead. We can actually see him trying to connect with his son in this movie than in the last one. And we can actually see the problems he has by creating a Frankenstein monster of his son. and that really turns him apart. There's a lot of characters and variations and references and Easter eggs in this movie that you probably would miss, but you will enhance your experience. We get to see more of Steppenwolf in this movie. In fact, I actually think that the villain of Steppenwolf, played by Ciara Hines, actually feels menacing and more relatable in some respects. In fact, he feels more relatable than his 2017 version. While in that version, he felt more like a supervillain with mustache who wanted just to conquer the earth and become the supreme leader. In this movie, we see that he's a minion of Darkseid and that he wants to prove himself by conquering Earth and creating the unity. He feels more relatable because even in a scene of his, he wants to pray to Darkseid because he wants to prove that he's a main guy, that he can actually be respected, and that he can actually prove to him that he can be his equal. And speaking of Darkseid, who is voiced by Ray Potter, he looks menacing. However, in this movie, Darkseid, in my opinion at least, feels more weak for many reasons. In the flashback scene that we talked about in the story, we see that Darkseid is the one who is leading the charge on Earth instead of Steppenwolf. And while I actually like Darkseid doing more of a handwork in this movie, handwork in this movie, he gets defeated pretty easily. And here's the thing, this is not me comparing this Darkseid to Thanos from the Infinity War and Endgame movies. No. It's about comparing this Darkseid to his counterparts Darkseid in the comics and the cartoons. Here's the thing, in the comics and the cartoons, Darkseid believes himself to be a god. He might come from the new gods, but he believes to be the only god that matters, that his vision is the only one that matters in the universe. He's so desperate for looking to the anti-life equation to restructure the entire universe to his will, which is something that I'll applaud in this movie. He tries to find the anti-life equation, but unlike that version, he doesn't go to work himself. In the comics and the cartoons, he sends his minions. He's more confident, more of a despot. He's so confident of him believing that he's a god that he will never go to Earth to invade it. In fact, he sends his minions to do so. And whatever is in defeat, he still gets the last laugh. I mean, in the Superman animated series, he managed to bring down Superman in two ways, like killing a detective in order to get the last laugh after his invasion failed, and the other one in which Superman gets mind controlled by him and uses him to invade Earth. And after the mind control is done, he leaves Superman in a total of shame. That is more powerful than him coming to battle. It's still cool, but I still believe the Darkseid that I know, will never go to Earth himself. He will send his minions. In fact, it actually makes sense that Steppenwolf will lead the charge of Apocalypse towards, because he feels more of a stake here and he feels more of a failure himself, so he wants to prove himself in this movie. And it would have been better to put him in the flashback battle than Darkseid. But again, that's just me. Now, the cinematography and effects in this movie, while still looking very CG and not convincing enough, it still looked good. The designs, the effects, the shots, the slow-mo. I will say that there is too much slow-mo to a default. I mean, even though I like the slow-mo in Zack Snyder movies, I still feel he uses it too much in this one. And he can actually make a movie without the slow-mo. But maybe not, and maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like there has to be less slow-mo in this movie. But the shots are beautiful, the composition feels more natural. We see more effects, more grandiose and imaginative than in the other Superman and Batman movies. We see more creative decisions being made in this movie. Like I said before, the Flash having a great scene using the Speed Force to travel back in time feels a lot compelling in this movie than in the other ones. Even in the CW shows, who normally have a limited budget, they still don't know how to get across the Speed Force. And I feel that actually Zack Snyder, for once, he actually managed to know what the Speed Force works. The costume design and the production feels more cohesive. In fact, there are a lot of scenes that they were rearranged in order to make it more natural and more cohesive. So for that, I can fault it for it. And I actually had to admit, I can see now with these shots and cinematography and effects, what was the intention of Zack Snyder? What was the main goal he wanted to make? But I'll get that in the end. And like I said before, the Flash's scene using the Speed Force are so beautiful. The Atlanteans more look cool in this movie. We see more Amazonian's world. We see Themyscira looking beautiful. We see more creations of Apocalypse looking more like an apocalypse. And like I said before, the character designs feel much better in this movie. They feel a lot cooler, which is something that Zack Snyder always uses as a catchphrase, that he's cool. But in this case, I can actually see why. I think by this point, this is a subject that I didn't want to talk about, but let's address the nightmare versions in this movie. I mean, Zack Snyder had an intended plan to make in 2016 when he made the script for Justice League 1, 2, and 3. In this movie, it seems that the nightmare version that we saw in Batman v Superman has more of a stake here. Not only because we know the threat and what was intended to be, but we can actually see what was the main goal. And in many respects, it made me look back to Man of Steel and Batman v Superman in a lot different ways. And I can see what was his intentions. I'm not gonna spoil what was the intended plan, but Zack Snyder already posted on his museum, so even though I'm not gonna say anything because we don't know if there is going to be a Justice League 2 or 3 at this point, I'm just gonna say this would have been the boldest moves and storytelling that he would have ever pulled off if the movies were going out the way he intended to. Although I will say that the nightmare scenes and the whole Mad Max, all apocalyptic world that Batman has dreams of, I can see how much worry Bruce has in this movie and how desperate he is to create the Justice League in this movie, in which in the other one we only see that he wants to unite the movie because, well, he's Batman. So that was Justice League. And now we have to come to the $1,000,000 question. Do I think this movie is great? Do I think it's a masterpiece of a movie that is beyond light years ahead of us? Do I think it's the greatest DC movie of all time? Well, it's complicated. I will say that the movie is good, but as a masterpiece, I can't say that. For one reason. While I still like that this movie is more coherent and is still more grandiose and more impressive to see, I still can call this movie a masterpiece because in many respects, and I know a lot of people will disagree, this doesn't feel like a DC movie. It feels more like a Zack Snyder movie. And while I know a lot of people like that, I still can call it the definitive version of the Justice League, or even the DC Comics as a whole. I know that a lot of people will have their own interpretations of the DC Comics, just like Marvel, just like anything else, but Zack Snyder, I don't think he intended to make it a faithful adaptation. And I know that sounds cheap when I say it out loud, there have been variations over the years, but here's the thing. DC as a whole doesn't feel like a long year vision in which it can expand to any corners of the universe or expand other stories and characters. If you want my honest opinion, I don't think Zack Snyder intended to make it into a franchise like other movies like Marvel or even DC as a whole, but more like an intended Lord of the Rings story in which it has a beginning, middle, and end. I'm sure he had intended a Cyborg story or the Batman movie that with Ben Affleck or even a Deathstroke miniseries or even just a Wonder Woman spinoff or whatever. I'm just making it out of my mind, but when I see Zack Snyder's movie, especially Justice League, I see more of a story that has a beginning, middle, and end. And I read the script for Justice League 2 and 3, and given how he treats the characters there, I can safely say he didn't intend it to make it into a franchise, just a three-structured movie, or movies as I like to call it. I will also say that as far as I know, this is it. This should be the last Zack Snyder DC movie ever. I know a lot of people want the Snyderverse to be restored, but again, it's Zack Snyder's vision, not DC's. And I know that a lot of people don't like the Warner Bros. Decision to separate themselves with Zack Snyder's vision or the man itself. But here's the thing. We got the movie and it's good, but it should not be the template for other movies. Marvel has done genius things by not just sticking to one director, but to have many. And they have a clear goal that they want to expand to multiple areas, to multiple places. And that's what I want in the end, variation. We don't have to stick to just one director. we can choose from many others. We can choose from James Gunn, we can choose from Matt Reeves, we can choose from James Wan, we can choose any other director with their own vision. And if anything, DC should be varying with their choices. I don't want just Zack Snyder to oversee everything. I want someone who stick to the comics and has a clear world, but sticking to the morality that Zack Snyder implemented in his movies into other films. Because here's the thing, I want this vision to have multiple voices, to feel more individual, more grounded, more real. And in the end, that's what we all want it. To have these characters to feel more like appealing to us. Whether you inspired us, whether they relate to us, we just want the characters to be something that we can connect with. And I'm sorry to say it, while I actually like this movie a lot, I still can't feel a connection with the Zack Snyder DC movies. But that's just me. I mean, I just grew up watching Marvel so much that I finally disconnected myself from DC. At least with the main characters in the movies. I actually like more individual characters, more obscure characters such as Doom Patrol or even the Suicide Squad, and especially with the Peacemaker. I want to see those stories. I don't just want to stick to just one character. I want to see variation. And in the end, what better way to do obscurity than to implement characters that we haven't seen before? And I want that. I want variation. But yeah, at the end of the day, many people will disagree with me, and despite the Warner Brothers creators deciding to separate themselves from Zack Snyder, people, and especially Zack Snyder fans, doesn't want to detach themselves to him. They want Zack Snyder to come back. They want him to do the vision of the DC movies he intended to. The whole release the Snyderverse is not exactly something that I want. And even though there are fans who are still clamoring for another movie, for another Justice League 2 or 3, or even a Cyborg movie or other Batman movies with Ben Affleck, I say just be happy that this movie is here and that you got your wish. But here's the thing. Giving too much control to the fans might be not a good idea. It might not be a great plan. I believe that just having this movie out is more than enough. And to be grateful that this movie is here and that we don't have to demand another one. Just because it has a cliffhanger ending doesn't mean we have to see it as an ending. We don't have to stick to this vision. I know what the plot is, and I know the intentions and the main goal, but I still want this movie just to be that, a movie. It doesn't have to be just a movement. It just has to be something that we can enjoy. Nothing more. In the end, the Snyder fans had their wish, and I'm glad that this cut of this movie is out so I can watch it again and actually analyze what worked, what didn't work, or what's beautiful, what's not. That's in the end what we wanted. Something that we can compare to and something we can all connect with. But I say this is it for Zack Snyder. It might not be. It might be that he one day in the future wants to do another Justice League movie, but given what the actors' reactions or others just want to move on, I'd say let's just all move on. I'm actually more excited to see the Peacemaker with John Cena more than actually another Justice League movie. That's the reality I live in, and that's the reality I have to accept. I know that sometimes we can all push and push to see another vision's goal because after all, dreams lift us and makes us more than what we are. But there are dreams that just come from, I don't know, desperation and sometimes for not being satisfying enough. And sometimes we can actually find ways to get around that or to accept it and move on or just find other ways. But this is it for me. I just want to be done with this movie. I want to be done with Zack Snyder's vision. And if he does another one, great. But it pretty much seems that he won't do it likely, at least in the future. Never say never, of course, but for now, until that day happens, I'll say that this is it for him. And it's time for us to move on. But, well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope my opinions can, I don't know, provide you something to think about. You might agree, you might not disagree, but feel free to comment in the sections below. Whether it's good or bad, whether it's negative or not, I want to see the comments. I want to know what you think. I want to know what's your opinions on Zack Snyder and his movie. Do you like it? Do you don't like it? If not, you can say it so. If you like it, you can also say it so. But for now, if you like this video, please share, please like it, and subscribe, and give a ring bell. But for now, I'm Enrique, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.